what should exist, but isn't. Simply put, making a tooth involves many layers of tissues: dental lamina, follicle, papilla, etc., from two different origins: the ectomesenchyme and mesenchyme, communicating with each other via signal molecules from 300+ genes. This interaction goes on for more than a decade until a tooth is fully formed to its root. One of the professors I know specializes in tooth regon research, and he actually confessed he regrets ever taking on the subject because it is way too complex, and even he doesn't know if it'll ever be possible. I bet you already know, but PDF as it was conceived back in the 90s was never meant to be edited. Consequently, PDF editing software sucks by design. People are forced to use it in ways the file format wasn't even built for. Even its creator laments that creating and viewing PDFs is great, but editing, processing is difficult. Its only purpose was to store and present documents consistently on any kind of system thrown at it, which was and is still no easy feat. To be truly immutable, the trade-off for immutability is that changing it is a PIDA, by definition. They exist. They're not very expensive, they're super reliable, they're much cheaper to maintain than the color inkjets everyone uses because the ink never dries out until you actually use every atom of it. They're black and white laser printers. They're great, but everybody thinks they need color, so they buy these shitty color inkjets. Hot take, but I'm pretty sure it's true. Privacy is a luxury of the time we live in. We live in a blip of human evolution where we have some reasonable expectation of privacy. Prior to a few hundred years ago, families mostly lived in one-room houses or other structures. In the future, privacy will be gone because of ever-present technology. Enjoy it while it lasts. If you don't like this comment and want to ensure privacy for the future, support groups that fight for privacy. The ACLU comes to mind for Americans. I bought some Pop-Tarts that advertised they were X amount more frosted than the original. Opened the box and it was the same miserable spread of frosting on there. I was so annoyed and bored that day that I called the number on the box, asked just exactly how much more frosting was on them because they looked exactly the same. The sugar content was the same, so what was the difference? She didn't have an answer and just sent me coupons for free Pop-Tarts. The end. I heard someone say once if a lion could speak perfect English, and you could understand each other, you still wouldn't understand each other. I guess the meaning behind that was that even if we could communicate our experiences, worldview, and just our existence in general is so different that our conversation would go nowhere quickly. It was a head-scratcher, but I finally understood it. My son and I were thinking of this the other day. Fire-breathing dragons are technically possible. Most animal life creates methane, fuel. An electric eel can create a jolt of electricity, and some animals produce reactive acids, spark. There are plenty of animals whose teeth, bones, claws, hard bits never stop growing. Nozzle. If an animal evolves with all these abilities, fire breath is possible. Dragon? Usually, hair loss in man is diagnosed as androgenic alopecia. Basically, high levels of androgens, male sex hormones, the most potent of which is DHT, in the scalp can reduce the length of your hair growth cycle as well as cause shrinkage of your hair follicles, preventing hair from regrowing. This is usually a gradual process and you won't realize that you are losing your hair until it's thinned out significantly. Nowadays, androgenic alopecia, male pattern baldness, is usually treated with finasteride and minoxidil. Finasteride inhibits the production of scalp DHT, most potent androgenic hormone, to reduce or prevent hair thinning. With minoxidil, the method of action is a bit less clear. However, it is thought to shorten the hair follicle telogen phase of hair growth when the hair is not actively growing, resulting in a premature anagen phase. Growth phase. Using these two products in tandem is a good start at preventing and reversing hair loss, although you're gonna want to study up on this topic more for yourself before you decide on anything, as both finasteride and minoxidil can have side effects ranging from mild to severe, although severe symptoms are pretty rare. Also, when starting a hair loss prevention plan, it's important to actually stop the hair loss itself, that is, use finasteride, before actually trying to encourage new hair growth. That is minoxidil, because if you just try to grow new hair without actually stopping the loss, you will be fighting an uphill battle that you cannot win. Also, in terms of regaining lost hair, you can always get a hair transplant. However, you will still need to use something like finasteride to prevent you from losing the transplanted hair as well. P.S. I'm not a doctor, so please do your own research and take my advice with a grain of salt. Amazingly, I only found out about this today. I stopped by one of my coworkers when I saw her phone in her back pocket. I asked, "Hey, I have question. How do you sit with your phone in your back pocket and not crack the screen?" She pulls her phone out, both sides are cracked. "So, you don't." She then went on a micro rant about women's jeans and shoved her phone into her front pocket to prove her point. I just kinda stood there in amazement. She only got like a third of her phone into her pocket before. I was just like, WTF. This one's complicated as cancer is such a broad term. For some types of cancer we have very effective treatments. Try googling transarterial chemembolization or microwave ablation. Then there are other cancers like glioblastoma multiforme, which is almost always fatal. The other issue is that medicine has advanced so much that we're able to prolong life, to the degree where the body now has more time to develop other complications. I'm not sure in other countries, but in Australia I believe the current statistic is 1 in 3 people will develop cancer, not necessarily fatal, in their lifetime. This statistic is quickly heading to 1 in 2. Cancer is an umbrella term. It only describes the type of disease. A cure for cancer is just as impossible as a vaccine for virus. Vaccines need to be individually worked for very specific viruses. Heck, the newer strains of coronavirus that are resistant to the vaccines we have should be enough evidence of that. Cancers are wide and varied. Thinking of all the money and talent poured into a cure for cancer is a scapegoat. Mostly propaganda used by pseudoscience crowds like anti-GMO, all-natural homeopathy anti-big pharma companies, that exist to get your money. The truth is that money is split into tens of thousands of teams working in independent units studying thousands of different diseases that all share the cancer label. Nanites that completely removes the need for internal surgery. Oh, you have cancer? I'll give you an injection of nanites, and by this time next week you will be 100% cancer-free. Oh, you had a stroke and are partially paralyzed? Take this injection and your paralysis will be cured by Tuesday. Oh, your heart is in such bad shape that you would have needed a transplant 5 years ago? Let me give you this injection. I disagree. Flying is difficult on the best of days, and giving every Tom, Mick, and Sally with a Class A the ability to essentially pilot an aircraft just isn't smart. Even if they came up with a compact system that can fly affordably, the amount of time, effort, and money required to obtain just a private pilot's license is out of range for most people. So even if it happens, chances are it will be as affordable as owning and operating a private plane is today. Not for everyone, that's for certain. A way for me to use all the Face ID functions while wearing a face mask. If you have Apple Watch, it'll now, since update, unlock your phone if you're wearing one, but paying for things with Apple Pay and accessing other apps using Face ID, it's still a pain in the ass. I thought Apple would have this down by now. My mouth is not the only defining feature of my face after all. I just realized how first world problem this sounds. Some people said cure for cancer and now I look like a total cunt. Pre-cavity treatments. There should exist something that can instantly kill any harmful bacteria that can cause cavities so it doesn't happen. I've had 10 cavities, all due to my teeth being really constricted, not being able to get at with floss and not knowing of this issue at all. And there should be some mouthwash or toothpaste that just destroys any potential of cavities. A portal that opens up every 50 years to show us exactly what happened in the past that we as humans had to estimate, guess or reconstruct. We can all have the actual facts and finality on things like unsolved cases like, did OJ really do it? John Bennett's real murderer? The Menendez brothers? The missing flight from Malaysia that was never found, we can prove or disprove most or some of the things in scripture for accuracy. I think that would be cool. Oh, and also, I can finally know if Grandpa really did or didn't leave that inheritance to me mother. Fu. A portable, non-electrical atmospheric water generator or harvester for people having to live in arid conditions. This is a worry of mine with climate change. A lot of the world's human population will live in desertified areas without access to potable water. If enough water is harvested out of the atmosphere, not only can it be used for the immediate need of people to stay alive, but any extra water can be stored in underground reservoirs, or it can be used for drip irrigation in low-water use agriculture. Non-electrical would be a requirement because our future electrical generation capacity may be gone. The supporting tech required for civilization is very fragile. Civilization is very fragile and not the norm historically for humanity. Mosquito laser. A tiny device with cameras and a set of medium-powered lasers. Find a mosquito, aim the lasers, fatally burn the motherfucker to death. Last I checked, this thing kinda exists, except the patent troll is holding onto the patents very closely. No production, just suing those who make it. A talent show to rank the abilities of politicians. No one understands the truth of this more than you and me. To get more out of those politicians, we need a better ranking system than just please vote for me. Imagine if they were judged by their ability to answer questions in a public forum, solve international conflicts for open discussion, or do some kind of badass physical challenge like scaling the Washington Monument without any assistance. I bet these guys would raise their games. A global environment protection agency with resources and authority to investigate and crack down on any legal persons that do damage by pollution, by not keeping promises or otherwise to the environment and ecosystems. A powerful NGO that could fine Coca-Cola for 20% of its profits for plastic pollution. That has backfired spectacularly due to how strictly it was enforced and the length of time it was in place. China's workforce is about to massively shrink and cause big issues in the country. They're making investments elsewhere to outsource a lot of the manual labor that's currently done there, but there will still be a shock. Also, on a global scale, population control isn't really something we need. Current trends would indicate that we're gonna max out fairly soon, particularly as more countries develop and have less children, and within a range that's totally fine in terms of resource intensity. An app that makes you conduct a sobriety test before you send a text message or call a number on a list of numbers. If you pass, somehow you get a pre-recording message of sober you reminding you why we don't call or text that particular person, and after clicking agree only then will it go through. I call it X-Blocker 1000 inches. Face masks with LEDs that can display helpful messages about people like this is sarcasm. What you are saying upsets me. Bored. No more guessing games. Government drones that you can summon from your phone that fly around you with lights and cameras, just so you can draw attention to yourself without having to go straight to emergency services. A recycling bin with compartments. That way I can have 3 in 1 unit. A USB cable plug that by law every device that uses USB has to use. An extension for Reddit that flares users who have been reported as shells. Government drones, I see the point and that would be good, but I could see the government just making them fly around and do random surveillance. The privacy part of me says no thanks. And there's also a free app called Moonlight that uses your GPS and has agents call on your behalf. They also try to call and text you when you set off an alarm to get more info and see if it's a false call. If they can't reach you, police are immediately notified. I may like my privacy, but the app only works if your GPS toggle is on, so I'm not too worried about that one. Okay, so once I was dehydrating a bit on a hot day and running a cold. I would love if I could have directed a bit of attention to myself just in case the situation got out of control, but it was far from the calm 911 time. Also, like women walking to their car at night, etc. Just a subtle warning to any potential bad actors and a bit more readiness in case something bad happens. could probably exist. Rehabilitation for criminals and drug users instead of punishment. Free, easy to access quality health care of every type, especially mental health, addiction treatment, basic checkups, dental vision act. A way to match low-income people with abandoned property that belongs to the local government, and the older cars, trucks, computers, when replaced. Probably not possible. Replicators like Star Trek, a pill to keep your moods optimal. You can get sad, but not too sad or for too long. Clean energy and CEOs that don't build spaceships on the back of underpaid employees. Okay, now that Bezos is gone, some sort of music app that senses your mood and plays songs accordingly. It always feels like I'm in the mood for say rap, and instead it's freaking Lord, and I have to flip through like 400 songs to find one that fits my mood that isn't one of the same 5 songs I listen to daily. Who have the grades to pursue it. Ideally, this is how a system like that would work, but it doesn't take a Rhodes Scholar to understand why a system like this would never be allowed to exist on a large scale in the Western world. Hint, it would instantly be called racist, as some demographics would be excluded as a disproportional rate. Someone is producing and selling you the therapy for years you need to stay alive, and at the end you either die or recover. If you die and the company is really high profile, they can even sell you a coffin. If there was something that could cure it instantly, all of this couldn't happen. Also, it's money to invent this thing in the first place, and these things are enough for everyone not to make it. Redditors realizing the up, downvoted buttons aren't like dislike buttons. Edit, the irony is thick here. There's a subtle difference between a like, dislike button and an upvote, downvote button, that is completely lost on the majority of Redditors. You can still upvote something you don't like, if you think it adds to a conversation, or to quote the help page, vote. If you think something contributes to conversation, upvote it. If you think it does not contribute to the subreddit it is posted in or is off topic in a particular community, downvote it. There's a reason it's not called a like, dislike button. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep, his cupidity may at some point be satiated, but those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. C.S. Lewis. Universal income for the U.S. Nano printing for clothes that costs virtually nothing. A way to reorganize atoms into any form to make any material. Division of religion and state, government in ways that actually matter. Space cruisers and galactic travel. Flying cars. VR with bleed effect, like learning a new skill just by downloading something. The system in Sims where I can just summon any tool you need to do something you need to or are just wanting to try. Transporters. I despise the unnecessary commute to a location I don't really need to be at simply because I never want to understand remote working. Not just because of the price, but really the time it takes. I waste too much time. I mean, I'd still get to work late with the transporter, but I'm still saving myself a lot of time in the day. Lazy fucking scientists. Teleportation. Imagine how much better our lives would be if we could teleport. From vacation being possible any day after work, to being able to escape dangerous situations, to being able to see long-distance loved ones. It would be great. Of course, there would be huge issues with it as well. Armies could teleport in and out of cities. Assassinations would be ridiculously easy to get away from. There would be no way to lock people up, etc. The only way around the obvious downsides would be if there was a way to prevent it, perhaps barriers you can set up to keep people from teleporting to certain places, but then it would be monopolized, so that itself would be an issue. What was the question again? So are local buses tracking so you know when to expect it at your stop? Can we please do this with garbage trucks? Just a nice little push notification. Hey, we'll be coming down your street in 30 minutes. Forever gone will be the days of me lurching out of bed, muttering fuck because dummy forgot to put the bins out last night. Please, make it so.